All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. Yay, it's the weekend, almost, for some of you. So, last night in the Thursday call, I promised that, or at least I wrote an email, I think, promising that I would post a video on this, and I'm going to talk about how exactly to do this mindfulness meditation practice. Um, and I just want to read something first, actually, about meditation. This is from the Scientific American magazine. This is the last paragraph, and then I'll back it up with information and all of that. But the author of this article in Scientific American said, perhaps it is the New Age, quasi-spiritual connotations of meditation that have so far prevented mindfulness from being hailed as an antidote to our increasingly frantic world. Research is helping overcome this perception, and 10 minutes of mindfulness could soon become an accepted, stress-busting part of our daily health regimen, just like going to the gym or brushing our teeth. Sounds familiar? Yeah, I've been talking about this kind of stuff, so I'm glad to see other writers out there in agreement and basing it on research. And lo and behold, there is some great research that's coming out. So I want to kind of touch base on that. And so I'm going to ask a question first. The question is, are you your thoughts? And we would like to think that, yeah, I mean, these are the thoughts I have. This is what makes me up into who I am as a person. This is how I react. This is me. Accept me for who I am and all of that, right? And I would love to accept that reality too. But the truth is that we are really the thoughts and emotions that we feel based on what part of our brain is dominant. And that's just fact. So MRI scans have been applied to people who meditate, and what's been discovered is it's about the connections. We have our lower functioning brains and then our higher functioning prefrontal cortex, which is decision making. The prefrontal cortex is decision making, attention, concentration, all that kind of good stuff, keeping our focus. But the other lower parts of the brain, the amygdala more specifically, are our fear responses, our stresses. And what happens with meditation is the amygdala actually starts to shrink while the prefrontal lobe begins to thicken. Okay, so you've got this amygdala, which is the fear and emotional responses, these pre-programmed things that are happening, these triggers that happen, something in life occurs and all of a sudden the amygdala sends out some electrical pathways throughout the brain to make us react in a fearful way or some way that's going to defend us, unnecessarily in many cases. That's what the amygdala does currently in our society. I mean, it had a useful purpose when we were reptiles, but we're no longer reptiles. So what meditation, according to MRI scans, does is it shrinks that amygdala and thickens this part of the brain right here, the prefrontal lobe, where all this fine thinking, decision-making focus can take place. Doesn't mean we won't have emotions in any way. It's just that we will have a higher level of control and ability to decide how we want to approach any situation in life. And so that is kind of what the science is showing based on these MRI scans. And so it's about the disconnection between the lower centers and these higher functioning centers, disconnecting as much as possible. And this way we have less stressors happening. So when we have less stress occurring because our thoughts create whatever stressful reactions happening in the brain. Now, if we have less connection between the lower centers and these higher centers that can make some more rational choices and decisions in our lives, well, our body's going to have less stress. And when we have less stress, we all know everything gets better. We know that. That we don't need any science behind that. I mean, less cortisol is produced. So what happens when less cortisol is produced? Less belly fat, right? Just in that one situation out of the hundreds and hundreds of different bodily functions that occur from stress cascades in the body. So we don't have adrenal depletion. I mean, so many things. Backs won't go out as much. Greater muscle development. You know, because when we're under a lot of stress, that's all inhibited because blood flow is constricted. So this is crucial. This is really crucial stuff. This is literally cross-training for fitness. And it's been a part of my life, actually not as much as I think it really ought to be moving forward. And leading these groups really enhances my desire to want to do this more in my life. Obviously, I've done this. I've been practicing it for many years, but especially now with the research that's coming out, I'm even more motivated to want to apply this practice. And what they're showing is you really don't need more than 10 minutes a day to have a substantial difference occur in your life. So I wanted to go over what my practice is and the general idea, because I think it's sort of hazy as to how to meditate, and a lot of people think it's beyond them, that it's not for them, oh, that they can't do it, that, you know. Well, the first thing I'm going to say about that is right there we have reactions and thoughts. Are you those thoughts? Or is that just a dominant reaction that's happening in your mind at this point? I can't do it, you know, an instant reaction to it, a negative thought. Well, that's kind of what this is about in the way that I approach it. And I've found it to be very practical in reducing stress in life and focusing in the positive direction. So the first step is to see that that's a negative thought, and just suspend your disbelief or any preconceived notions that you might have had about meditation, as I'm going to give you information about what I do, and then you can think about how you want to maybe apply it in your life. And I'm telling you, if you do, you will become more fit, stronger, more vital, and, you know, achieve your body composition goals with greater ease if you apply it. So the first thing to recognize is don't seek perfection in meditation. There is no perfection, and I think that's what that's just a misconception. It's just a process, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be like some sort of a transcendent nirvana, whatever that means, nirvana, right? Experience that you can always snap into. Occasionally you might tip into a state of mind that feels really wonderful for little short periods of time, but don't expect it to be that all the time. It's an imperfect experience, but it's more about the process. So I'm going to walk you through the process. Hang in with me. So there's a simple idea in terms of, it's kind of a slogan, I suppose. And the slogan is control your mind, or your mind will control you. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. You know, how can we have an experience where we gain greater control over the faculties of this part of our brain that can lead to greater success in our decision making as we move forward? And the system that I apply is what I talked about last night in the Zoom, which is the anchor meditation. That's the first part of it. By the way, I use these words, even the word meditation, you know, has a certain connotation about it. They're just words that we have to use to kind of define what the experience is. So don't get so hung up on the words and whatever your associations are with these words throughout your life. You might have had a bad experience with that word meditation. So just kind of take it loosely. I have to use words to kind of begin to describe it. So, um, anchor meditation. So this is mindfulness. That's another word that's used. And I mentioned last night that just 5 minutes is all you really need to really get started with this experience. But you do want to eventually build it up with the full practice, to maybe a maximum of 20 minutes. Jerry Seinfeld does 20 minutes twice a day. That's just like a random piece of information right there. Kind of a motivating thing. I didn't know that about him until fairly recently, that since the age of 17, not that this means anything to any of you, but I was a big Seinfeld fan back in the day. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. But every single day from the age, I think he said, of 17 on, he meditated. In his case, it's called transcendental meditation, which is a version of this, twice a day, 20 minutes each time. And he says that his success, he attributes it exclusively, he says, to the fact that he's a meditator. So I'm just putting that out there for those of you that might be Seinfeld fans. So I sit. Any position works. I'm just sitting on a bench right now. Doesn't matter. You don't really want to be lying down because you don't want to fall asleep. The idea is you're staying focused with your attention in a certain way. It's not sleep. It's very different from sleep. Okay? When our minds drift off to thoughts of things we want to do, that's a level of sleep. When we're in bed at night and have dreams, that's sleep. But that happens throughout the day, daydreaming, right? So when you're meditating and you notice that your mind is wandering, you're actually wandering into a form of sleep, a form of unconsciousness, which we think is us thinking, but it's actually us falling out from mindfulness or more of an awareness state into a sleep state. But we think, oh, but I have to go to the supermarket, I have to do this. Those are just dreams. Those are just, if they're not consciously on your agenda in that moment to do, right? They're just dreams of a sort. So the game at hand here is mindfulness. So it doesn't mean that you can't fall asleep. That's what I'm saying. When I said before, it's not perfect. You're going to fall asleep. Not like this kind of sleep, but you'll start thinking about other things. That is a form of sleep. Just recognize that, though. You have to almost not want to fall asleep. You have to want to stay aware, to stay present, to be in the moment. You have to want that. That is the intention behind this practice, to want to be here in the moment. And that is what begins to thicken the prefrontal lobe and to thin out and disconnect the amygdala and other lower brain functions. It's that desire and that presence, but it's not going to be perfect. There's some meditations that, I sit down and I just can't get my mind off of other things. Oh, well, tomorrow's another day, or I can meditate later. It's never going to be perfect, just like working out. This morning, I just, I think I overtrained for the past few days and didn't sleep enough last night, whatever. I was only able to do half my workout this morning. Oh, well, consistency is the key, not perfection. That's so important. Please take that to heart. But I'm telling you that this does work if you stay consistent with it, even when you don't want to do it, even if you do it half-hearted. And it doesn't mean you can't skip a day. Obviously you've got to live your life and do things. But if it's part of your life, just as important as brushing your teeth, you will get the results. In this case, health and fitness results that I'm talking about in the long run. And it will be an amazing cross-training. So let me back up. Let's go back to my focus here. Let's see if I can stay focused. There's so much to talk about on this. So sitting, bringing the attention to any kind of kinesthetic awareness. In my case, So I'm talking about, you know, feeling your skin, your hands, your soles of your feet, whatever you want to bring your attention to as your practice. Yesterday I mentioned the fingers being connected. I use the high frequency sound, which I don't usually hear until I focus in on it, but now, for example, I hear it, I'm present to it. It's the best tool. And I mentioned if you lie down in bed at night, tonight, whatever, if you say you can't hear it, you might. Most people actually have this, but they don't realize that they have it. So while you're lying in bed, listen. If you hear a very high-pitched frequency, that it's almost like the sound of silence, that's something you key into, and you can increase the volume of that with practice. So right now I'm hearing it, and I'm actually in the moment right now as I'm awake talking to you. So find what you want to focus on. So I'm going to give you 3 things. All right, so the idea is to be able to disconnect that thinking machine, that robotic machine. It's going over and over and over and over, making you think, gotta do this, gotta do that, you know, oh, I'm so worried about this, all this stuff. 3 focuses, okay, to try to disconnect that somehow as best as we can. So the first thing is find whatever you can focus on, and as I mentioned, that high frequency is the best, in my opinion. Some people could stare at a candle. You can even close your eyes, and what do you know, if it's light, you see light. If you see red by your eyes being closed, just focusing on the red, for example, right? If you're in a well-lit room, you're gonna see red, most likely. Just focus on that, which is the same in a way as the sound that I hear. And all you would try to do is look further and further into that red. Just focus and keep your attention on that red. All right? So in my case right now, I'm focusing on the high-pitched sound. You can focus on whatever you want. The next thing is to bring any kind of word. It has to be something that has no meaning to you. So the best word to use is Om, I think. We've all heard it. It has no meaning to us. And just Om, in my mind, saying Om. So in my case right now, I'm listening to the sound, and in my mind I'm saying Om, Om, right? So I've got 2 things going on. I don't do this right away. I slowly build into this. I probably do the listening for a minute, then I bring the Oms in, and then in the 3rd minute, I visualize the sun above me, and I feel the sun's rays pouring down on me, surrounding me like a cocoon of light and warming me. All right, so I've got like this 3-dimensional experience that I'm focusing in on in order to take my attention away from negative thinking. All right, so those are the 3 things that I use. My imagination made these 3 things up in a way. I mean, the sound I hear anyway, but whatever you want to experience is up to you. You can use what I just told you. You can do my technique or find what works for you. And that's the practice, that you try to hold on to the awareness of those 3 different points, or whatever 3 points you want for yourself, and just stay focused in the moment on the 3 separate points. You could ping between the few. Okay, I'm going to listening. I'm listening. I'm feeling the sun, you know. You try to experience them all at once. So it's kind of like juggling. That's what you're doing. You're literally juggling with your mind in order to take your attention away from thoughts, negative thoughts. And so that's the practice. And that's what thickens that frontal lobe, which is rational decision-making, patience. I wrote some things. It's awareness. That's basically the, you know, what the functions of it are, as opposed to irrational emotional reactions, which is the deeper reptilian functions. And the irrational emotional reactions are how we live our life very frequently. You know, people come into our lives. I don't like that person for some reason. Whatever, you know. it's, you know, we have a lot of irrational ways of functioning that are not compassionate and present to just a loving way of being all the time. So I want to take this one step further. So what does this do? So we're becoming aware of the present moment, and we're distracting ourselves from negative thoughts, because mainly we have a lot of negative and stressful thoughts. Once we feel we've you know, meditated for maybe 5 minutes or so, we've gone far enough to distract ourselves, that's when we bring in the affirmations at a louder volume in our head. You could stop the ohms if that's what you're doing, and just focus on whatever your affirmation. I am strong, I am toned, I am slender, I am whatever. Visualizing these positive things in your mind. You know, I have so many of them that I can't think of them right now. But you just begin the affirmation process. You can even pray if you're someone that does prayer. Whatever it might be, that's a positive thought, something reinforcing what you want in your life. So now you have an opportunity to have more of that become a dominant feature as you're building your focus and strengthening your frontal lobe. You're creating these positive loops of thinking, all right? Pushing down those negative ones, disconnecting those negative ones, all right? So that's not denial. It's very different from denial, all right? You're not denying anything here. You're just trying to disconnect and create a new positive loop. So now you have the affirmations coming in, and you can do that for as long as you want. You could do, you know, you could do affirmations for 5-10 minutes. You know, find whatever is the maximum amount of time that you're willing to commit. Everybody has a different lifestyle, different amount of time they can commit to exercise, to different things. So whatever is reasonable. That's why I say 5-10 minutes, as long as it's consistent, is going to create new fertile inner reality for making decisions toward your health and fitness that will lead you and keep you going in the direction that you set for yourself, these positive directions, the affirmations, these thoughts, and keeping them in your life more permanently, as opposed to being on this program that's 10 weeks and then it's done. Finding that space. So this might take a while. It might take way more than 10 weeks to develop this ability, but it is so worth it. Just like squatting, you know, and the fitness exercises that we do can take, you know, in many cases, it could take years to get really good at it safely. But tell me it's not worth it once you can do it. You're in control of your fitness destiny. You don't need exercise equipment, you know. It's the same thing. So this is literally cross-training. Okay, I want to now top it off and give you the most practical part of it. And I hope you all have stuck with this, because this is the important part of it. All right, so those of you that stuck with it, you're now going to get the jewel of what we're talking about here. Once you're good at practicing this mindfulness meditation, and the reason I use the sun is to create that cozy effect. I like doing it in cozy atmosphere, so that throughout the day, if I'm confronted with a stressful situation, whatever it might be, even right now, I'm doing it right now as I'm talking to you. You can't even tell that I'm doing it, but I'm recalling the sensation of the sound, the sun, the Om, pulling myself in to the present moment, because negative thoughts come into my mind, like, oh, you know, whatever, I'm no good at this or that. You know, negative thoughts come into my mind all the time. I guess the reason I love this is because I'm such a negative person, and I've been able to conquer my negative thinking to some degree at this point in my life by practicing this. So when negative thoughts come up, insecurities or whatever, coming back to that present moment attention, that mindfulness, and turning the volume down on the negative thought and allowing a positive thought to come up. No, I'm doing this, whatever it might be. and not giving into the negative thought. That is the practical reason to do this, because throughout the day we're going to encounter situations, people that push buttons in us, situations that frustrate us, negative thoughts of being incompetent at something, whatever it might be. We're all going to get these kinds of thoughts. Women get different thoughts slightly than men, but we all get them when we have some thoughts that are common either way. So in the moment when I feel uncomfortable, when I feel flustered or whatever it might be, that's the time to apply this technique throughout the day. So I can actually say that I do the meditation, but then throughout the day I must apply this mindfulness, this presence, I don't even know, 100 times. So many times. And those, let's say 100 times of different situations in my life, might not be 100, might be 50. I've never counted it, of course, but those are moments where I'm actually bringing my attention, my awareness to the center that I feel when I'm meditating. And then I'm able to make a decision based more on an affirmative thought than reactional, right? Not allowing the reaction to dominate, but more of the prefrontal lobe to dominate in the decision-making process. So that's what happens, and when that happens, the stress level goes down. Cortisol and all the other hormones that are released that are catabolistic, right? They catabolize, they break the body down. Those are minimized. And when I'm dealing with situations from more so of a stress-free reaction, I guess, or action in this case, it's even likely that good hormones can be released, especially if I feel good then about what I'm going through. I feel triumphant in a way, as opposed to defeated. Don't you want to be triumphant as opposed to defeated? I think you do. So that's the beautiful thing about this, is you can apply it throughout the day.